Oh, this is so. All of you potential live streamers out there, have a go. Oh, I need to get my headphones in just to try it out. See if because we botched the audio up yesterday. Get my headphones in. I hear it there. Okay, now we'll go over to Periscope, and I'm going to stay on Periscope today because I know how to do it. I guess is probably the main thing, right? I know how to do it, and so we'll got some interesting news today and some ideas for you. We're gonna try and see the Periscope just takes so long to get going, and I apologize for that. There it is. Okay, so we may have some challenges just getting it. I'm going to assume the sound is working right because I know I have this turned off and I don't hear anything in my head. And I see myself. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to knock that down. If you're out there, and that's kind of the way this works, I'm trying to adjust the camera. It's on a little tippy thing, so that's great. That's bad. And off we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglash for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Okay, let's look into the world over here as we see it. Okay, so right off the bat, my idea of people wanting virtual sports, at least virtual, something to watch, some diversion in this boredom and slow moving tidal wave, where we can just get on with, watching something. Uh, we're addicted now to entertainment, I guess. There's not much going on. So, Drone Flying League says that it's got a lot going for it, and it's doing a lot of it's getting a lot of viewers from yesterday. It straddles the line between real and virtual, and its viewing figures are soaring. Well, I can't hardly describe it, but like I said, people are at home looking for things to do, still excited about sports. They just don't have any access to it right now. And this was interesting. This is a sport where even at the physical event, the things making contact on the field of play are actually robots. I believe robotic sport has a great, bright, and exciting future. Okay, so let me try and show you what this looks like. This is really kind of crazy. I think it's crazy. Let me get it over here and we'll give it a go. Here we go. Let's see if it plays. There we go. Okay, so the guy takes off from the field and they go through these hoops and stuff. And up, he hit the side of it. Now there's these little guys, you can see other drones in the camera. That guy's ahead of him, see? Now he passes him and goes through the thing. He accelerates. Now you got to go down through it and out to the side and then down this hallway. And this stuff is all in some old warehouse. And you can see that the ceiling leaks. Oops, he crashed again. The ceiling leaks. Now he's got to go around. And how they know where they got to go is beyond me. I was a ski racer. So I went through the slalom gates and giant slalom at high speed. And I've watched this a little bit. And these guys have virtual, they have the goggles on. See the red guy right in front? Up, crash. Oh my gosh. And that's what it looks like. So anyway, um, that's a bit of the drone racing. My goodness. So you get in a place where you're not gonna like pitch your cookies or have a bowl with you, but it's pretty fast, and there are no, the people could all be remote. So I called or I contacted my sports legend friend, and I told him my idea of let's get some sports legends playing on Twitch and doing commentary. And so he said he'd get in touch with sports legends if he could find them. And he wrote back to me and he said, well, I won't say exactly what he said, but he said he's working on it. So maybe we'll get something with UFC or something else. At least he's a globally known sports legend. And again, try to add value to the world. That's what I'm doing in my time here. And so maybe we'll have virtual. I mean, in the UK they have virtual horse racing already, but I would love to see virtual March Madness better done, virtual NBA, virtual. Heck, you can run NFL games if you wanted to. You could take any sport you want. Golf would be fun. Get Bubba Watson playing on the Jack Nicklaus golf simulator. I saw that Tiger Woods was using a simulator at home. Well, let's just set up a camera, live stream it, Tiger. So if you know Tiger, get this off to him. Okay, so I've also been trying to find like something fun, and so here's a pizza ad from Little Caesars. He's got the piano player out on the porch.
Get free delivery
And
all
this
this week,
iSpot
March
TV
16th
is
through
really
the 22nd, with online orders of $10 or more at littlecaesars.com.
Pizza, pizza.
So you probably didn't get much of an idea of that. Then we'll go back to the PDF. Okay, PDF, and then I get my bearings back. Oh, my wife says I'm not on lockdown. I should be able to go to the to the office. That's just what I need. There, I just have more space. I have a bigger screen, and I can make it work. So there's a new crowdsourcing map called COVID Near You, and it's actually pretty good. I can figure it out. Let's go over here and show it to you a little bit. We'll get the PDF. Now I'm really lost. Okay, there we go. Let's go over here. COVID Near You. So I brought up this is an interactive map. It moves around. But the trouble is you got to go there and tell it that you've been tested and that you're positive. So I'm a little west of Milwaukee, and so in my area there doesn't seem to be any viruses. I've been trying to get some good data on this. It's a really interesting philosophy of science, which is my education. It's a really interesting philosophy of science sort of exercise. And why do I say that? Well, because a governor in Nevada, I believe, said that he's not allowing any prescription drugs, or he's not allowing this malaria treatment to be used for COVID-19. Somehow he banned it in Nevada. And we watched Laura Ingram's talking with a professor or a consultant with the Stanford Medical School and Johns Hopkins University, saying that they had a treatment, but it was a malaria treatment, which is not an antiviral. Malaria is a bacteria, and also Z-Pak, which is a bacterial treatment also. And they were saying that it relieved the symptoms and cured the patients. And there had been a study first of 6 patients or 12 or something, and I referenced that. Then there had been a study of 40 in France. I read yesterday there was a study of 350 in New York. Last night I heard there was 500 patients treated, all recovered very rapidly. And so we have this paradox that some scientists say that it can't work. It can't be right. We don't understand why it works. And others say, but look, it works. And so I went back to the study of hand washing. And you may not know this study, but it's I found a fascinating article on NPR. So here's this doctor. The doctor's name is Ignaz Semmelweis, and he was working at I think he was working as an assistant. No, that's the person who wrote this article. Anyway, he was working in a hospital in Vienna, and he noticed that the midwives, there were 2 maternity wards in this hospital, And he noticed that in one ward there were male doctors, and in another there were midwives, women midwives. And this was the age where science was emerging and they were starting to collect data. And this speaks right at the heart of marketing, machine learning, and AI. That we think if we collect enough data, that we will somehow miraculously have the data reveal the answers to us. And it just isn't so. And this is just, I have an undergrad in history and philosophy and a master's in philosophy of science. So, in some ways, I did a lot of philosophy of history also. But here we go. So they were leaving these ideas that bad spirits, evil spirits, or curses, or other things like that caused illness, and they were starting to look into anatomy, and autopsies became more common, and dissection and looking in the body to see if there were some connection between the body and the illness. And they were starting to collect data. And so Semmelweis noticed that many women were dying in the maternity wards from something called childbed fever, and that the maternity wards staffed by doctors had 5 times higher deaths than the women in the midwives clinic. Now you think to yourself, how could we not notice 5 times greater deaths? It is staggering. But people died. Women died in childbirth. It was a fairly common thing. Sometimes some died, some didn't, and there wasn't even a really clear indication that giving birth at home or giving birth in hospitals, which one was safer. In fact, probably when you read this, probably the hospital was much less safe. So anyway, so he's trying to figure out why. And this is one of the challenges in solving any problem. You may not know why. And knowing why does not knowing why does not necessarily mean you cannot solve the problem. And that is one of the paradoxes that we're facing right now in the world today on this virus. But watch what he does, okay? So he made a list of differences between the two wards. He noticed that in the midwives' clinic, the women gave birth on their sides. So he instructed the doctors to have the women lay on their sides while giving birth. No difference. Nothing happened. No effect. He noticed that whenever someone on the ward died, a priest would walk slowly through the doctor's clinic, past the women's beds. So he came through the doctor's side and then went to whoever died wherever they were. And he thought, well, maybe the priest walking through and they were ringing a bell, maybe it terrified the women and they developed the fever and got sick from the fear. It's, there's a lot of psychology in illness, and it's not an unreasonable idea or hypothesis. So he asked the priest to change his route and stop ringing the bell. No effect. Okay, so he got so frustrated that he couldn't figure it out that he took a leave of absence, and while he was gone, one of his colleagues died of basically the same disease. The colleague was doing an autopsy on one of the women who died and pricked his finger while he was, working with his instruments, and developed the same thing and died, which told Semmelweis that this childbed fever wasn't something only women got in childbirth. It was, and apparently then he found out that this was not that uncommon, that the doctors would get this and it seemed like if they cut their hand or something. And so he developed a hypothesis that there were cadaverous particles. This is key here. Cadaverous particles, little pieces of the corpse that were being carried from the autopsy room, which they were obviously, up to the women. Well, so he had them wash their hands with chlorine, with bleach, basically. And at this time there was no theory of germs. Louis Pasteur hadn't done his experiments yet. Semmelweis didn't know anything about that, but the rate of childbed fever fell dramatically. Now, so here's here's where we here's where we here's the issue. When we find a cure, do we stop until we figure out the causal relationships? You can, but if you're in the midst of a pandemic, it may be a big mistake. Okay? So nobody liked him. You'd think everyone would be thrilled, but Semmelweis had solved the big problem. They weren't. For one thing, the doctors were upset because Semmelweis's hypothesis made it look like they were the ones giving the fever to women. Think about that, right? And Semmelweis was not very tactful. He publicly berated people who disagreed with him and made some very influential enemies. Eventually, the doctors gave up the chlorine hand washing, and Semmelweis got fired. Sounds like the guy in China who said, this is going to be worse than you think. And he got fired too. So whistleblowers tend not to fare very well. Over the years, Semmelweis got angrier and angrier. Eventually, he was committed to a mental institution. He was probably beaten and died of sepsis, which is essentially the kind of thing he was fighting against. So science proceeds on a rocky path. So does marketing analytics. We see things when we started doing modeling for Lovesac. I saw one of the odd things I saw was that places that had a high number of pet stores per capita or pets per capita also bought this furniture. I said, that doesn't make any sense. And they said, so, I ran it by them. They said, oh, it makes tons of sense. I said, how so? They said, well, didn't you see the last catalog? I said, I hadn't gotten it yet. They said, well, we've gotten a lot of feedback from pet owners who have cat hair and dog hair all over the place. And what they love about our furniture is you can unzip the covers and throw them in the wash machine. Or get new covers if they get too full of cat hair or whatever. So that actually was part of the process that led us to the Forever New. But I saw a variable that we happen to have. We've done some we've had some pet clients. And so I happen to have a profile of the United States by zip code on pet stores per capita and pet owners per capita. And there was a correlation. And that led to some definite changes in the offer. And that led to a higher ability to drive traffic. And that led to driving traffic to the through television to the website, follow up with postcards to an explosion in growth. So part of the process is observation. That's where it starts. With our methodology, you can observe hundreds of variables at the same time. You can see how your results varied by weird variables. That was the thing that Semmelweis did. And he found lots of variables that didn't matter at all, which is exactly what we do. Then we start thinking, well, seems like there's some kind of impact here. Maybe we should start thinking about it. A lot of times I run it by the client. A lot of times it doesn't work out in the real world. But the fact is, the faster you can do that process, the faster you can test different observations with hypotheses, the faster you get to something that can be extended and can be leveraged in your customer acquisition and retention. And that's how the process works. Fascinating, fascinating article, fascinating history. If your marketing analyst, if your modeler isn't thinking on this level, it may be slowing you down. You may have doctors who don't want to take the blame and therefore don't like your hypothesis. It's costing you money. Like and share. Your friends will think you're smart. I'm John Miglosh. Have a great day. Bye-bye.